The words were still ringing in my head when the glass door clicked shut behind me. Get out and don't come back. It's strange how quickly a voice can turn into an echo, how something so loud in the moment becomes almost unreal the second you step outside. I stood there, half numb, half burning, watching my reflection in the dark glass of the office building that had just spat me out. My ID badge still hung around my neck like a collar without a leash. I didn't know whether to rip it off or just leave it there, like evidence. For 3 years, that badge had opened every door I needed. Now, as I pressed it against the reader out of habit, it only blinked red. Access denied. That tiny beep was quieter than Ralph's voice, but it hit harder. Ralph Denton, my boss, the man whose signature could double a budget or end a career, had just screamed me out of the company in front of 12 people. A marketing floor full of glowing monitors, keyboards, and those polite frozen faces pretending not to hear. I think I managed to say, "You can't falsify numbers, Ralph. That's not reporting. That's lying." Then the office went silent. Then he snapped. I didn't even shout back. I just picked up my jacket, shut my laptop, and walked out. It wasn't courage. It was survival instinct. The kind that tells you the building's on fire before anyone smells smoke. Outside, the November air inched through my shirt. The city was already humming with 5 o'clock impatience, horns and crosswalk chatter, and the smell of rain that never came. My phone buzzed twice. Rent reminder and credit card balance. Perfect timing. 3 years of working late, cleaning Ralph's messes, writing reports that made his decisions look deliberate instead of desperate. Gone. No severance, no references. Just a public humiliation and a month of bills waiting to swallow me whole. I sat in my car without starting it. My hands were shaking too much anyway. You don't realize how loud an empty car is until you have nothing left to say. Then, like muscle memory, I reached for my laptop bag, except the laptop wasn't there. I'd left it on the desk. My fingers froze halfway in the motion, and then it hit me. The export. 15 minutes before Ralph's outburst, I had run a full data pull, raw campaign metrics for Q3, clean, time-stamped, untouched. I'd done it because the numbers Ralph gave me didn't add up, and I needed to check if the discrepancy came from the client feed, or from our end. It was habit, not defiance. But that file was now sitting in my personal archive. Legally, safely, mine. I pulled out my phone and checked my inbox. There it was. Export sept Q3 SSV. Sent to Evan Cole, personal email. That's when the shaking stopped. For 3 weeks, Ralph had been telling me to polish. Numbers for our biggest client, Harker Automotive. He called it smoothing the variance. Translation, add 10 to 15% to performance metrics so his quarterly report wouldn't look like a failure. I'd refused. Twice. The third time, he didn't ask. He ordered. When I pushed back, he smiled and said, "Everyone massages data. It's presentation, not deception." I remember thinking, presentation ends where invoices begin. That afternoon, he'd stormed out of his office with my report in hand, slammed it on the desk, and said, "If you won't play on the team, you can play outside it." Then came the words, "Get out and don't come back." Now, sitting in that car, the words replayed with perfect clarity. But the tone had shifted. It didn't sound powerful anymore. It sounded scared. A notification pinged on my phone. I almost ignored it. Probably another bill, but it wasn't. It was from a client alert system, one I'd forgotten to disable. Harker Automotive. Analytics discrepancy detected. Timestamp, 6:12 p.m. Exactly 40 minutes after Ralph fired me. The alert was automated, something I'd set up months ago to cross-check server uploads for anomalies. It compared what the client's system sent to what we reported internally. If the delta was too wide, it triggered an email. I'd built it to catch technical glitches, not lies. Curiosity overrode anger. I opened the link. The dashboard loaded slowly over cell data, line by line until the chart appeared. And my stomach flipped. The reported conversion rate had jumped 38% in 1 day. Impossible. The real feed, the one I'd exported earlier, showed flat numbers all week. He'd already started doing it, using my old credentials. I laughed once, a dry, humorless sound that fogged up the windshield. Somewhere between anger and disbelief, I realized what was coming. Ralph was going to forge results under my name. He had the access, the templates, even my reporting macros. To anyone outside, it would look like I had submitted the data. I should have called HR right then, but I knew how that would go. Ralph was management, HR reported to him. I'd be the disgruntled ex-employee, and besides, what could I say? Hey, the guy who just fired me might be committing fraud using my code. It sounded paranoid, maybe even bitter. Instead, I drove home. 10 miles of rain starting to fall in lazy, uneven drops, like the sky couldn't decide whether to cry or not. My apartment looked smaller that night. The walls too close, the silence too wide. I made instant noodles, ate standing up, and stared at my laptop screen. Not the work one, my old personal machine that still smelled faintly of dust and stale coffee. I opened the export file, every number lined up, clean, simple, real. Then I opened the alert again. The fake numbers glowed on the screen, inflated like a balloon begging to burst. That's when something in me shifted. The humiliation was still there, heavy as a bruise, but underneath it, a thin line of focus started to form. Ralph had screamed to scare me off. But if he was using my name, he hadn't cut me out. Not yet. I saved both files, created a folder, labeled it Integrity, Draft 1. The next morning I woke up before the alarm. Not because I had anywhere to go, I didn't, but because something in me refused to sleep. I opened my email again. Another alert had come overnight. The numbers were climbing higher, and right there, between two graphs that didn't make sense, I saw it clearly. The line that would eventually hang Ralph Denton by his own data. By the end of the first week, I'd rewritten my resume 5 times and deleted every version. There's no neat way to explain I walked out because my boss ordered me to fake data. No recruiter wants to hear that. They just hear problem employee. I sent out 30 applications anyway. Marketing analyst, data consultant, even a part-time copywriting gig. I wrote cover letters that sounded confident, but not desperate. I was both. The mornings were the worst. I'd wake up at 6:30 out of habit, still half expecting an early Slack ping from Ralph or the team. Instead, there was just the refrigerator, humming and the faint sound of pipes in the wall. I started drinking the cheap coffee again, the kind that leaves your hands shaking but keeps you moving. Every rejection email felt the same. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Every new day, my bank balance dipped lower. By week 2, I'd sold my old TV on Marketplace for $90 and pawned a Bluetooth speaker for gas money. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. Pride's a stupid thing. It doesn't keep you warm, but it won't let you ask for help either. Then on a Thursday morning, I got a text from Mia, one of the junior analysts from my old team. Hey, Evan, I don't know what's true or not, but Ralph's been saying you tried to delete files before you left. He told everyone you were bitter about being demoted. I'd never even been warned, let alone demoted. He's also using your old signature on client decks. I saw it on a Q4 projection slide. My chest went cold. Can you send me a picture? I'll try. Please don't say I told you. 10 minutes later, a blurry photo came through, taken quickly, probably on her phone under the desk. My name in blue, the same font, the same placement. I zoomed in and saw it clearly. Report prepared by Evan Cole, lead analyst. The timestamp on the deck. 4 days after he fired me. I sat perfectly still. The coffee on the table went cold, untouched. He wasn't just manipulating data. He was using my name to validate it. I called HR, or tried to. Straight to voicemail, I left a message. Calm, factual, professional. Then another one the next day. Then nothing. Silence. By Monday, a new message showed up in my inbox, the kind of polite rejection that feels like a slap. After internal review, we've determined your departure was voluntary. No further discussion necessary. Voluntary. As if I'd chosen to be screamed out of the building in front of a dozen people. That night, I called a friend from college, Brandon, who worked at a small legal firm downtown. I'm not suing anyone, I told him. I just need to know what I can do if my name's being used. He listened, didn't interrupt, then said quietly, keep everything. Every email, every timestamp, every file. If you have automated reports that go to your personal inbox, don't delete them. If you get any contact from their side, don't respond directly. Route it through me. Do I even have a case? I asked. He paused. If he's forging reports under your signature, you don't just have a case. You're his liability. He's gambling that you'll stay quiet long enough for the quarter to close. Don't make it easy for him. So I didn't. I spent the next week cataloging everything. Every alert, every discrepancy, every file name that didn't match. I built a private log. Date, time, delta, source. It wasn't revenge. It was survival documentation. Still, life doesn't pause for you to build a case. Rent was due in 9 days. I took a 1-month contract with a small ad tech agency across town. Part-time, low pay, no benefits. The kind of gig you take to prove to yourself you're still employable. The boss, a guy named Simon, was kind but blunt. You're overqualified, but I'll take precision over ego any day. I worked 12-hour days rebuilding ad funnels for clients who couldn't spell conversion. I didn't complain. The paycheck would barely cover groceries, but it was mine. Then one late evening, I got a LinkedIn message. Subject: discrepancies in Harker reports. From Laura Jensen, Marketing Director, Harker Automotive. Hi, Evan. I know you're no longer with Denton and Blythe, but I was reviewing the Q3, Q4 reports and noticed something off. The data we received from our side doesn't match theirs, and your name is still on the headers. Would you have 15 minutes to talk, off record? I stared at the screen for a long time. The same company whose data I'd exported, the same one Ralph had doctored, was noticing. 15 minutes, she said. I typed, of course, tomorrow evening works. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I kept picturing the office I'd left behind, the glass walls, the rows of monitors, Ralph pacing like a storm cloud ready to burst, and somewhere inside, the copies of my name, attached to lies. When morning came, I almost canceled. Fear talks like reason when you're tired. Stay out of it, Evan. It's not your job anymore. They'll handle it internally. But then I remembered the sound of that door closing behind me. The red light flashing, access denied. I called Laura. Her voice was calm, controlled, but there was tension under it, the kind of tone people use when they already know the answer but need to hear it from someone else. Did you prepare the Q4 summary? She asked. No, I said. The last report I ran was Q3, the day I left. Everything after that isn't mine. She exhaled slowly. I thought so. The math doesn't check out. Their totals are inflated by almost 30%. We've been billed for campaign performance that doesn't exist. I can prove it, I said before I even realized the words were out. I have the original exports. Time-stamped. Laura went quiet for a moment. Then she said, Evan, I can't officially involve you, but off the record, I'd like to see those files. We agreed to meet the next day. Neutral ground. A cafe halfway between her office and mine. I hung up, closed the laptop, and sat in the quiet. For the first time since Ralph's shouting match, I felt something different in my chest. Not anger, not fear. Something closer to steadiness. He'd wanted me gone because I was the only person who could see what he was hiding. Now the one person who could expose him wanted to talk, and she'd come looking for me. The funny thing about truth is that it waits. It doesn't shout. It just sits there, patient, until someone finally opens the door. Tomorrow I was going to open it. The cafe was quiet in that early hour way, the kind where espresso machines hiss like whispers and no one speaks above a murmur. I sat by the window, a single black coffee cooling beside my laptop, watching the rain streak faint lines across the glass. Laura Jensen arrived exactly on time. Business jacket, no umbrella, sharp eyes. She didn't sit immediately. She studied me first, like she was measuring whether I was still part of the problem or already something else. Evan Cole? Yeah, I said, standing up. Thanks for meeting me. She gave a quick nod and slid into the chair across from me. I'll be direct. We've been billed for a campaign that doubled results overnight. My finance team says your name's still on the reports. Denton insists you prep the dataset before you left. I opened the folder on my desktop, the one labeled Integrity, Draft 1. I didn't, I said quietly, but I can show you what's real. Her expression didn't change, but she leaned in slightly. I turned the laptop toward her and opened 2 windows side by side. My export, clean and time-stamped, and Ralph's doctored version pulled from the client dashboard. The difference was like looking at truth in costume. See here? I pointed. These spikes shouldn't exist. There's no corresponding increase in traffic from your servers. These numbers were generated locally, probably using one of our old macros. And this, I clicked to highlight the footer. That's my signature block, copy-pasted. Laura's jaw tightened. So he's forging? More like inflating. But yes, fraud by presentation. She closed her eyes for a second, thinking, we've already paid bonuses based on these metrics. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. When she opened her eyes again, they were clear, steady. Evan, I can't ask you to testify. Not yet. But could you create a mirror report using only our raw exports? Something we can show our internal audit? I hesitated. If I do that, it'll look like I'm coming after my old employer. You're not, she said. You're coming after the truth. Something about that line stuck with me. I agreed. For the next 3 nights after my shifts at the ad tech agency, I worked at the kitchen table until 2 a.m., rebuilding the Harker dataset from scratch. No macros, no shortcuts, just raw code and verified logs. It felt like surgery. Delicate, methodical, each number a nerve that could expose rot underneath. By the 4th night, I had it. A complete reconstruction, unpolished but real. Every chart aligned perfectly with their own server data. No spikes, no sudden miracles. Just steady, honest performance. I sent it to Laura with a note. This is what your campaign actually did. Not glamorous, but genuine. She replied within minutes. Thank you. We'll handle it from here. I thought that was it. I'd done my part. But Ralph never left quiet spaces alone. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Ralph Denton, you've been talking to Harker. Let's not make this ugly, Evan. I can help you fix this. I stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. There's nothing to fix. Stop using my name. His response came fast. Careful, you still have an NDA. Don't make me remind you what happens when people violate company confidentiality. I didn't answer. I forwarded the texts to Brandon, my lawyer friend. He wrote back 2 words. Keep everything. The next morning, my email pinged again, this time from Laura. Audit scheduled. They're calling in Denton next week. Be ready, just in case. Be ready. I didn't know what that meant until the next evening when Simon, my current boss, called me into his office. He looked uneasy. Evan, I just got an email from someone at Denton and Blythe. They're accusing you of taking proprietary data. My stomach dropped. They're lying. I know, Simon said. I already checked the timestamps, but I need you to stay clean. If you get dragged into their mess, I can't protect you. I nodded. I'm clean, Simon. Always was. When I left his office, I sat in my car for a long time again. Like that first night, when the cold air hit me outside the building. But this time, the fear had changed shape. It wasn't panic. It was calculation. Ralph was cornered, and cornered people always lash out. But what he didn't know was that every file, every alert, Every timestamp from those doctored dashboards was sitting on my encrypted drive, and now in Laura's audit team's hands. A week later, the audit began. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Rumors travel faster than reports. One of my old colleagues, Mia, sent a late-night message. They're tearing the place apart. Legal, finance, the whole board. Ralph's losing it. People are whispering he changed invoices too. I asked her if she was okay. She replied, "Yeah, but they found your name on like 5 forged docs. Everyone knows now it wasn't you. You should have seen his face when they showed the timestamps. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. I knew exactly what those timestamps showed. The moment he'd crossed the line. The moment he'd used my export as the skeleton for his lie. That night, I closed my laptop and sat back. For the first time in weeks, I let out a long, full breath. The truth was doing its work now, quietly, relentlessly, the way it always does when you give it time. But then another email arrived. Subject: Contract discussion, confidential from Laura Jensen. Body: We've decided to suspend work with Denton and Blythe pending review. We'd like to bring you and your agency in for a pilot campaign starting next month. Are you interested? I read the line 3 times just to be sure it said what I thought it did. Interested? I typed back one word. Absolutely. The next morning I forwarded the message to Simon. He called me before I even finished breakfast. You serious? He said. Harker Automotive. That's one of the biggest accounts in the state. They reached out, I said. Simon whistled low. You just changed this company's future, Cole. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. There was one thing left unfinished. Ralph still hadn't fallen, but he was falling, and I wasn't going to stop him. I was just going to watch gravity do its job. The day the audit results dropped, the city was drowning in late winter rain. I remember because the first thing I heard that morning wasn't my alarm. It was thunder rolling low and mean, like something cracking open. At 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Mia. He's out. Board voted. Ralph's done. I read it twice. Then she sent another. They caught everything. Forged reports, altered invoices, client payments rerouted. The CFO's been covering for him for months, but Harker's audit burned through the firewall. I didn't reply. I just set the phone down on the counter and stared at it. The sound of the rain against the window filled the room. It didn't feel like victory yet, more like silence after an explosion. By noon, my email was full. One from HR at Denton and Blythe. Bland, formal corporate damage control. We have become aware of discrepancies in project documentation involving former employee Ralph Denton. You may be contacted for verification purposes. Another from Laura. Audit completed. Ralph has been removed. We're greenlighting your pilot, effective immediately. Expect paperwork today. That one made my throat tighten. Not because of the win, but because it confirmed something I hadn't allowed myself to believe, that doing the right thing hadn't been a waste of time. I walked outside just to breathe. The rain had turned to mist, soft but constant. The street smelled like wet asphalt and new beginnings. Simon called while I was standing there. Cole, he said, out of breath. They signed. 6-month contract. You just tripled our agency revenue overnight. Guess we're not small time anymore, I said, half laughing. Not by a long shot. And one more thing. We'll need help scaling. If you know anyone good from your old team. I knew exactly who. That evening, I texted Mia and another analyst, Aaron. The 2 people who treated me like a human being even when I was being erased. We've got a new contract. Better pay, better hours. Clean slate. You in? Mia replied first. Tell me where to sign. Aaron followed a minute later. If you're leading, I'm following. It was that simple. By the time I closed my laptop that night, the rain had stopped. The sky outside was just a dark sheet with the faintest hint of silver where the moon tried to break through. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to check my phone before bed. But karma, apparently, wasn't finished making its rounds. The next morning, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost ignored it. I should have. But curiosity is a stubborn habit. "Evan," a voice said, hoarse and unfamiliar until it wasn't. "It's Ralph." I didn't answer. He exhaled hard on the other end. "Listen, before you hang up, just hear me out. You think you understand what happened, but you don't. They set me up. The numbers were wrong before I touched them. If you'd just help me talk to Harker, we could both—" "Stop," I said quietly. He went silent. "Ralph, the only thing I'm going to do is hang up. You made your choices, and you screamed them at me in front of 12 people." "I was under pressure," he said, desperation seeping through the cracks. "You think you're better than me? You think they'll keep you around when they find someone cheaper?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "I think I'll keep sleeping fine," I said. "Goodbye, Ralph." He started to say something else, but I was already pressing end call. I stood there for a long moment, phone still in my hand, feeling the weight of that final click. Not anger, not revenge, just closure. The next day, a photo started circulating online, an anonymous post from someone inside Denton and Blythe. Ralph, standing outside the office with a cardboard box, suit jacket drenched in rain. No caption. It didn't need one. 2 weeks later, Harker Automotive's first project with our new agency went live. The dashboard glowed clean. No spikes. No magic conversions. No lies. Just real numbers climbing one honest digit at a time. Mia leaned over my desk, grinning. "Feels weird, huh? Watching results grow without faking them." "Feels better than weird," I said. "Feels right." She nodded, half smiling. "You ever think about calling him? Just to, I don't know, rub it in?" I shook my head. "No. People like him don't need reminders. They wake up with them." Outside, the clouds were finally breaking. Sunlight hit the wet pavement in long streaks, making the whole street shimmer like it had been scrubbed clean. I leaned back, watching the light crawl up the window. The noise of keyboards and coffee cups filled the room. Normal, alive, steady. In front of me, the live report updated. "Harker Automotive, Q1 performance, verified, authentic." I clicked publish. The numbers rolled forward, real this time, and as the graph climbed, slow, earned, honest, I realized something I hadn't the day Ralph yelled those words at me. Getting thrown out of that building wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of the one I actually wanted to tell.